All right, so the giveaway form is live because we're just leaving it open all the time now, so no one's going to be asking questions. Where is the giveaway form? It's not on. It's not on. It's not on. It's on all the time now. So, anyways, this week's giveaway form is asking about home automation stuff. Because if you guys noticed, we do some of that stuff here with our easy plugs and our easy bulbs. And I also see people asking to do home assistant stuff. So I have a home assistant task on my honey-do list today. So we're going to do it right now on stream. And we're going to show you how to do this. So I have a 4-switch, I'll make this a little bigger so you guys can see. I have a 4-switch, like little ESP powered thing. I bought it probably 6 or 7 years ago. The sad part is most of the stuff you guys get on like Amazon or eBay or even in stores, you can't reflash with Tasmota. Gone are the days where you could buy a cheap little strip and reflash it, but I have it. And you can do the same thing with easy plugs. This is basically like it's like 4 easy plugs, but it's outdoor rated in one thing. And what this is to control the whatever decorations we have. And it's been windy here, so you can see our little coffin is blown over. But if I go ahead and turn on decoration 1, and apparently I renamed this the wrong thing. So this is outdoor. That's 2. And for some reason 3 is, we're gonna fix that right now. Hang on. Look at the entity name. Okay. So switches 1 and 2 are for the little inflatable decorations we have here. So you can see the dragon there coming to life and the little axe throwing thing that we got from Nord's. So what I want to do is I don't want to have to remember to turn these on and off, okay? And we can do that quite easily. So they're plugged in. You can actually see the little thing. It's like one of those little spider things. Like I said, I bought this a while ago. There's a good chance if you go and buy one of these offline, you're probably not going to be able to reflash it with Tasmota for local control. So I'm just going to put that out there now. But you can see there, they're coming to life. And if I go ahead and let me switch that here. We'll put that side by side so you can see. So I'll go ahead and turn this off. That should turn this guy off right here. Oh, I guess the dragon's on number 2. So you see the dragon deflating. If I turn decoration 1 off, there we go, that one's deflating. So I want these to turn on and off automatically. And I want them to turn on and off depending on if the sun is up. So in Home Assistant, if I go to my integrations here, and yes, I have updates, I know. They just pushed out some updates. They have a simple entity called sun, and it gives you an entity called, I think it's sun.sun. So if I go here to my states, and if I search for sun, you can see here. So it knows when it's above horizon or below horizon. So you can see under the history here, this is basically sun up or sun down. So we're going to use this entity to determine if we're going to turn these on. And then what we're going to do is once the sun goes below, we're going to go ahead and tell it to start an 8-hour timer and then shut them off. Okay. So you can see here, it automatically does its thing where it's depending on my geographical location. So I have this entered in Home Assistant. It knows when sunrise and sunset is. So the entity name is sun.sun. You can see right now it's above _ horizon. Now, if you guys are just getting started with Home Assistant, they do have automations here. And you can see I've got a lot of automations, but there's none in Home Assistant. That's because I'm actually using a I guess it's third party, but it's like an official one. I'm using a different, what they call an add-on. So it's a Docker container, and it's really simple. So all this nerd jargon shouldn't scare you. But, so I have Node-RED installed. So you go to the add-on store and, you click your Node-RED. It's usually under the community add-ons. You click here and you install it. So I've already installed this. And you turn all these little switches on, except I don't auto-update because this has broken things in the past. But I have Node-RED on left here. So this is how I handle all my automations is through Node-RED, okay? So you can see I've got different tabs. This is one just for my office. So like when you guys, change my cube or you change the lights, this is handling that. But what I want to do is we're going to put one just for, I guess automated lighting it could fall under. I guess it's technically lighting, so let's just put it under automated lighting for now. You can see all these different automations here. So I have a lot of them. But this is where I would look for it. So I'm going to go ahead and I like to put a comment. So I'm going to go on the left here. I'm going to do a comment, and then we're going to call this decoration timer. And this is just for my reference. So when I go in here, I know what this is. And then you'll see here on the left, it has home assistant nodes. So remember, we want to turn them on when the sun goes down. So I'm going to do an event state little node here, and I'm going to double click this, and I'm going to tell it that I want sun, and you'll see it'll start auto completing. And if the state is, and right now it's above horizon, and I believe the night state is below horizon. Okay, and I'm going to double check this. So what I'll usually do is we're gonna switch it. So here we go, integration sun. I'm going to click that, and usually it'll give you information on what that integration is. So let's see. So these are the possible states here. So there's states and state attributes. So the only one we care about, so right now it's above horizon because the sun's up, and then below horizon. So this is what I want to fire on. So when the state becomes below _ horizon, that's what we're going to fire. So we're going to call this sundown, and this is just so I know what it is. And I'm going to put a question mark, like, is the sun down? Okay. And I usually check output on connect. My head is covering it in the bottom here, the output on connect, and then we're going to hit done. So now we have sundown. If I hit deploy now, you'll see right now it's blocked. So you have two outputs on these nodes. This is if the state is true that we entered in. So if below horizon, it will output on this one, and then if the state is false, it'll output on here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to call service. And what I like about this is the visual. So I just bloop, connect it here. And then we're going to do a service. So we're going to call this, we're going to say turn on decoration plugs. And these are switches. So we're going to use the domain switch. And we're going to have the service be turn on. And then so this one is called, it's like 4-channel. Oh no, I don't want device, sorry. Entity 4-channel, and you can see here decoration switch, and we're just gonna have to turn it all on because I use this for Christmas as well. So I got my switches 1, 2, 3, 4, and so this little call service node is going to turn on the switches that I specify here. So if I have other switches for, like, I have candy canes that we put all the way down the driveway. Those will also then be added to here later, but they're not added to Home Assistant. So I'm going to go ahead and hit done. And then I'm going to search for a timer node. Okay, so you can see here, there's a stop timer. I'm going to put this right here. And I'm going to also connect from here to here. And then we're going to put this as an 8-second time or 8-hour timer. Okay. But for testing and to make sure this actually works, I'm going to show you guys how to actually test your stuff here. So I'm going to put it for 8 seconds. We're going to change this to 8 hours after we're done. Now, instead of having to redo all those settings, I can copy and paste this, and we're just going to modify this from a turn on to a turn off, and I'm going to rename this. And so now what this automation will do is when the sun goes down, it's going to turn them on. It'll start this 8-second timer right now, which we're going to change to 8 hours after we make sure it works, and then we're going to turn them off. Now, to test this, you can actually use what's called the developer tools, and we're going to do that right now. So I'm going to manually override right now, so it's above horizon right now, and I'm just going to copy that, and then I'm going to change this to below, and you're going to see the automation fire off as soon as I manually override this. So this is how you can test your automations without actually having to trigger the actual entity that you're going off. So I'm going to hit set state. You'll see this change. It'll turn these on, and then it'll start the 8-second timer, and then it'll turn them off. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. So set state. You can see there it fired, switch, turn on. 8-second timer is running, and now I call the switch turn off. And then you can see here, notice my lights also turn back on because I also have an automation based off the sun. So basically my other automation, the reason we went out of night mode is whenever the sun comes up, if the night mode toggles on, it turns it off so that the next day my office is back in normal lighting mode. But you can see that there. So the entity updated and now it's back above horizon. So that automation works. It's as simple as that. So if I go ahead and go and change this now, this little simple automation, which is just the smart switches. So you can use your easy plugs with this. You can use your easy bulbs with this or any other device that's connected to Home Assistant. Now instead of instead of me having to go and turn these on, as soon as the sun goes down, according to that sun.sun entity, they're going to turn on. And 8 hours later, they're going to turn off. And what I'll also do, just in case for some reason this didn't work, remember we said that this bottom one, if this is false, it will then also fire. So just as a fail-safe here, I'm also going to connect this directly to the turn off. So if for some reason this messes up or gets reset or something, because when you're like rebooting Home Assistant or working on stuff, it can cause it to get out of sync and the timer not run. It'll go ahead and turn them off anyway. So and also let's say we turn them on manually at night, we wanted them to run for longer. Either way, as soon as the sun comes up, now we have a failsafe, and it's not going to hurt to fire that off. So I'm going to hit deploy, and just like that, I now have an automation, so I don't have to remember to turn our decorations on and off. So yeah, that's a quick little automation there. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. But yeah, so like if you guys aren't familiar with Home Assistant, this is an open source program. I'm running this in a virtual machine, but I also have another install for the shop. Running on an Intel NUC. You can run it on an old computer you have laying around. You can run it on a Raspberry Pi. I recommend running on a Pi 4 or higher. And also there's the Odroid N2 Plus boards that are very popular. And it's a cool piece of software. And if you're also running Octoprint, it also integrates natively with Octoprint. So you can fire off different things if your printer is done printing. You can have it like send you a push notification over email or text message or Telegram or whatever. It integrates with multiple different platforms. I use Telegram and like for the house when we have like the doorbell notification go off or the we have like the doorbell go off, or we have like for example, I have with the easy plugs, since they have power monitoring, I actually use them to monitor my washer and dryer based on how much wattage they're pulling. So basically, like we start the dryer, the power consumption goes up, and then it drops down when it's done. After 5 minutes, it sends us a notification saying that the washer and dryer is done. And they're just normal washers and dryers. They're not smart, but by monitoring the power, and the Easy Plug Plus that we have on our site right now is actually on sale. So if you guys are thinking about picking that stuff up, those are on sale right now, the Easy Bulbs and the Easy Plugs. You can do cool stuff with just power monitoring too. Taking a device that's not a smart device and getting its state based on how much power it's drawing. So I know like on my washer and dryer, they pull about 1.5 watts when they're idle doing nothing. And, so I can basically assume any usage over 2 watts, it's running. And so basically I have a trigger that says, okay, when it's over 2 watts, we can assume the dryer's on, and then when it drops down, it stays there. And the reason I have it stay there and check for 5 minutes is because sometimes your washer and dryer will have a spot in the cycle where it will not be pulling a bunch of current. Maybe it's just idling for a sec to go to the next step, and that can then cause false triggers. So it kind of like smooths it out. So anyways, yeah, and I have a gas dryer, so I can do this with my dryer. So if you have an electric dryer, though, you're not going to run that through the Easy Plug. The Easy Plug is a 120 volt, 10 amp device. So, but if you have a gas dryer in a standard washer, which most washers just run off of water. So, I think the max amps I've seen my washer and dryer pull are like 4 or 5 amps. So they're well within spec of running them on the Easy Plug stuff. So, all right, we're gonna get into the questions here. I am finishing up the Ender 7 stuff. If you guys, I don't know if you guys can see, but there are parts on, maybe you can see on all 3 printers. Those are Ender 7 parts. So we're running behind on that. I just had a lot of other stuff going on, as usual. So, and I see Peter's asking about the Peter's asking about the Ender 7 stuff. We're not gonna do official support for the Ender 7 with the Easy Board just because it's just like the Ender 6, meaning it's not a direct swap. It's not something that's simple, but we do have our DIY firmware, so you can put your Easy Board in whatever printer you want, and we still have firmware that you can use our compile site to compile, and you can also set it up however you like. So yeah, and then Thomas said, yeah, you can use a CT clamp to monitor with an ESP. Yeah, so I actually have for whole house power monitoring, I've got my mains lines monitored, and I also have a couple branch circuits monitored. But yeah, you could also have a CT clamp on the circuit for your dryer and do the same kind of thing. It's just a little more involved because you're having to go directly onto the wire. Since if you have an electric dryer, that pulls a hell of a lot of current. So you're not going to be running that on any smart plug. So, all right. So what questions do we have? All right. Okay, so Nemo is the first question, and he says, do you probe your beds before every single print? Yes, I do. There are people with the solid bed mounts that say you really don't need to. And that's a personal preference. My whole thing is, as you're going to be printing, every cycle you print, like you print, it's done, everything cools down, you start a print, it heats up. It's never gonna expand and contract exactly the same every single time. So that's my logic behind running a fresh mesh every single time I run a print, is because eventually things are gonna get out of skew, and I'd rather just have a fresh mesh. It's not like a BL Touch where it takes like a minute or 2 minutes to probe the bed. You can run a 3x3 bed probe, which is what I run on most of my printers, other easy ABLs, in about 20 to 30 seconds, depending on how fast you're running it. So, yes, we just take a fresh one. I think a lot of people with the BL Touches, it's very slow. Most BL Touches, you have to run slow to get good results. So it takes a hell of a lot longer. But, with the easy ABL, we're running a lot faster. Our stock speed, that works on, basically every single printer we support with our firmware and stuff, is 8 millimeters a second. But like on most machines, we also have our super fast probing speed. So if your Z-axis is really dialed in and moving correctly, you can use the super fast probing, which is 15 millimeters a second. So yeah, they're very fast sensors, so they can actually run the quicker speed. So that's what I run on most of my machines. I think the only one I don't have our super fast probing on is the Ender 6, because its bed physically can't, can't like move as fast. It was losing steps. So I have to concede and, go for only 8, but it's still a lot faster. Want It Print It is asking, it's kind of a low effort question, but I think what he's asking, does the 427 board work on the CR10 series using a 12 volt power supply? Yes, it does. The 427 boards work on 12 and 24 volts. I will say, because those boards were originally designed for 24 volts, the main thing is going to be your bed load and the current going through it. I recommend that you put something like an external MOSFET on it. Now, luckily, the original CR10 machines, most of them came with external MOSFETs already. So if yours has your MOSFET and it's still working, you can just reuse that. If it's not working, we do carry our MOSFET, and we do have adapter plates to put it back in the stock location. But that would be my only recommendation, is if you're doing the 427 on the CR10, whether it's the CR10S or the S4, the Mini, the S5, those series, is to definitely use a MOSFET for the heated bed to take that load off of the board. Other than that, it's a pretty decent board. It's not, the most feature-rich board, but for the price, it's hard to beat. Namogriff says, do you need to tune your retraction distance when using a 0.6 nozzle or higher, or do I use the same as a 0.4? Typically, I use the same as a 0.4. I don't have any differences between the two. I've just swapped between them, but your mileage may vary. Sai is asking about the ANET A and the series upgrades I went through. That could literally be like a multi-part video series, and it's not worth doing because nobody should be buying the ANET A8 anymore. If you want to look at upgrading your AM8 or A8, if you already have one, there is on Thingiverse a project called the AM8. And that's a metal frame conversion. I did that to mine, which is what's in this enclosure, and can highly recommend it. There's basically nothing left of the original ANET printer aside from the lead screws and the linear rods. I have replaced everything on that printer. So it's basically just a custom machine, but it is based on the AM8 design. So if you have an ANET A8, like the original one, the acrylic frame one, look up the AM8 upgrade kit on Thingiverse, and you have to self-source everything. The screws, the extrusion, you have to print your own parts. I did all mine in ABS, which is, because I knew I was going to be enclosing it and I wanted it to last long. And those are actually the original parts I printed about 5 years ago. Most of the parts on there, I think the only ones I've replaced are the ones on the bed holding the linear rods because they just wore out. But everything else, all the main parts are still original. So Michael says, if a company refuses to provide more than the source code for their printers when they're asked, are they immediately a violation, telling me it's company policy not provided for months? Yes, that's a violation. If they aren't, the bottom line is if they aren't sharing the source code, it's in violation. And speaking of that, Anycubic posted the Cobra and the Cobra Max firmware. They're still missing a lot of other ones. And we updated the page to have links to that. But they did post 2 firmwares. So my whole thing is I don't get why if you guys are, that should be part of your printer launch. If you are ready to sell it to the customers, you should have the source code ready to go. That's end of discussion. There's no reason you can't do that. It doesn't take long to create a GitHub repository, throw the files in a folder, and hit push, and that's it. That's all you need to do. You don't. People aren't even asking you to keep it updated. Just push it up to GitHub so the source code's there, especially on these boards with these weird processors that nobody's ever dealt with in the community, whether it's Marlin or even the Clipper people. So, all right. Jason's segment, is it safe to leave electronics in Ender 3 in an enclosure? So we have everything but the power supply in the enclosures in our print farm because I did not feel like extending them. And after having them in there for multiple years, I can say just make sure your fans are always working because especially stock boards, if those fans go out, it probably will fail. But they have fared pretty well. Now, in general, the cooler your electronics run, even your cheaper stuff, the longer it should last. So it's not a bad idea to get the stuff out of there, but we run a dozen Ender 3 Pros that are fully kitted out in our print farm, and we've had them running for years, and we've only had like one board fail over like the last 2.5, 3 years, I want to say. So, but definitely take the power supply. So what we did is we actually took the 12 gauge silicone wire kits we sell because they're long. We actually cut them and solder in XT60 connectors, like name brand good quality XT60. So basically, if we need to take the printer out to work on it, we just unplug the XT60 and take the whole printer out. And then actually on our bench, since we have multiple of these printers, on our bench we have another power supply sitting there with that same plug, so we can power it on the bench, work on it, unplug it, and then put it back into the enclosure with its dedicated power supply. So, yeah. Joe is asking about the Ender 7. I want to enter ABL. What about the firmware? So I will be working on that. My goal is to have this out and ready and shipping our LCD kits and have the video and everything done by Friday. So after we get off this stream here, I'm probably going to go have some dinner, and then I'm going to be out here working on this tonight. If you notice well, you might not be able to see it, but the Ender 7 is completely back to stock. So what I do is after I'm done working on everything, I put the machines back to stock so I can then record a video showing you guys how to assemble it and install the upgrade kits. So, and that upgrade kit is going to get rid of the stock touchscreen, put the 128/64 on there like we have with multiple other Creality printers. And along with that will also come support for the Easy ABL. And specifically, you are going to need, and this is because of a space restriction, we will only be supporting our Easy ABL Micro. So this is the actual bracket I designed. This goes on the hot end. And this is our 8mm sensor. So if you guys notice, we only carry the 8mm and the 12mm, or 8mm and the 18mm sensors. I mentioned this on the last stream. So because the 12s are kind of like that in between, and those were the smallest we could have made at the time, and now we're able to get 8mm made that are accurate. We are not restocking the 12. So if you guys are looking at it, waiting for us to restock the 12, we will not be having the 12s. I haven't had time to remove the product listing yet. So we're only going to be having the 18 and the 8mm going forward. And the reason we're keeping the 18s is because, one, most printers, that's what they take, and they're about $10 to $12 cheaper for us to have made. So the cost is lower on them. And yeah, so basically to try to have a lower cost option, still the same high performance, but lower cost option. So basically if your printer can take the 18, you buy the 18. If your printer like the Ender 7 can't take the 18 because of physical size restrictions on the hot end, then it will use the 8. But you can also use the 8 on other printers that can take the 18. So for example, I have the 8 on this one, and what that allows me to do is make it more compact and hidden in the actual hot end mount, because that's using our multi-mount. So if you are using a mount that takes a tiny sensor and you want it like, you know, more out of the way and kind of hidden, that's what the 8mm is great for. So going forward, we'll only have the 18 and the 8. So let's see. Christopher said, did we release a mount for the Dragonfly with the multi-mount? I already purchased the STL pack with the multi-mount, but I don't think I've seen that yet. So the Dragonfly is just a groove mount hot end, so you don't need a mount for it. You just put it in the multi-mount. So I think I'm going to put in this on my Ender 6, because we do have the adapter plate done. So I have the Dragonfly here that I purchased. This was not sent to us. Our guys have been testing them, and they're very happy with them. So yeah, so the Dragonfly right here. I think you might be talking about the fan clip. I don't know what the status of that is. I know Tor was working on it. I don't know if he's completed it. It might be complete, and it just needs final review. So, but in terms of putting the hot end, it's a groove mount hot end. It goes in there, and it'll only work with the, I think it's the BMO version is what this is. Let me, yeah, BMO. So this is the one you want with the multi-mount. So see, it says BMO at the bottom with the groove mount. So if you have the other Dragonfly, it will not work, and we will never be supporting the other one. So just the groove mount one. All right. Okay, Carlos is asking, going from the BL Touch to 8mm EZL, do I have to reflash? Or sorry, I slurred all those together. Carlos asks, I'm going from the BL Touch to the 8mm EZL EB. Why can't I not say my own product name today? To the 8mm Easy ABL, do I have to reflash the firmware, or do I just swap sensors? You absolutely have to reflash the firmware. It's a completely different setup. Yeah, definitely reflash the firmware. Sai's asking about, he's bored with Marlin. Would I recommend RRF over Clipper? No, I would take Clipper. If I was forced to not use Marlin, I had to choose RevRep over Clipper, I'd probably use Clipper. I do not like RevRep firmware. It's even like, the documentation is written by engineers, not people who are trying to communicate to normal people in normal people speak, is the best way I can put it. Almas is asking, will the 8mm Easy ABL Pro work on the Ender 3 S1 Plus? Do I use the 12mm for the 8? I'm not sure what you mean by that. So you can use the 8mm on the S1 Plus. The 8mm comes with adapters to put it into 18mm mounts. So you can literally just, there are little adapter rings that you can pop in, and it makes the hole smaller. And I think I did design, I don't know if it was for that one. I think I might be thinking of the Ender 2 Pro. I think of the Ender 2 Pro. The Ender 2 Pro, we have a dedicated micro mount for it. So we call our 8mm Easy ABL the micro, and our 18mm, which is the full-size one, that's just the Easy ABL. That's how we do our naming. So the one that's being discontinued is the 12mm mini size. So, but also on the S1 Plus, on the stock hot end location, you can use the 18mm Easy ABL on there just fine. You're not going to get much more probing area. I think it's like, if you went with the 8, it'd probably be maybe 5 or 6 millimeters closer to the nozzle. If that, it's like not, it's a significant amount. So, yeah. And that's actually all the questions we have. I talked about home automation. You guys are relatively quiet today. I am enjoying a hard root beer though. Maybe that's why I can't say the words, but I'm barely even into it. All right, you guys need to ask me questions. I was surprised that we just went through all those. There was like 7 of them, and that was it. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else that is worth mentioning. I'm trying to think. I don't really feel like doing a little project if we're bored. I'd rather wrap it up early so I can get to work on the what's it called? Get to work on the Ender 7 stuff. There we go. I'll put night mode back on. How's that? All right. So ask your questions. We got like 20 more minutes. And Trevor Dawn's asking, any chance you'd be able to sell a rat rig? I'd love the US option to purchase more V-Core 3s from. So I have heard good things about the rat rigs. I don't have any plans to do it. I think Tor's watching in here. Tor, are you in here? Tor? Bueller? Tor usually pops in on the live streams. I didn't see him chatting at all, so maybe he's just listening today. But Thomas is asking what size EZO I would recommend for the Ender 3 Pro. Just go with the 18. It's perfectly fine. Like, to give you guys an idea, like the 18 millimeter is a lot bigger than the 8, but for most printers, it's fine. We did not go to ERRF. I'm kind of glad. I'm kind of glad I did not, because a lot of people told me it was kind of disappointing. So there's that. Joe said I had to step away. I missed your reply about the ABL and Ender 7 and firmware. My goal is to have this ready to go so you guys can start buying kits and stuff on Friday. So after I'm done here with this stream, I'm going to have some food, and then I'm going to be working on the video showing how to upgrade the Ender 7, because there will be some soldering. Now, if you guys are not comfortable soldering the little LCD header to your boards, we will have an option. It's going to be like 20 bucks where you'll check that. You will send us your board. We will put that order on hold. And then once we get your board, I will solder. I will be personally doing it myself. I will solder on the LCD header. I'll go ahead and test it. So I'll flash the Ender 7 stock firmware on there, or like our firmware. Plug an LCD into it, test it, and then it'll go back out to you with the kit. So, yeah. So that's the plan. But if you're fine soldering the header, the kit will come with it, so you can tack it on yourself. And I did record myself soldering on the header. So if you guys want to see, okay, I don't know if I'm comfortable doing this, you can see how much work it is. It's really not that hard. If you've soldered basically any like smaller wires or anything, through hole components, you'll probably be able to do it without damaging your board. Carl Salonza said, I swapped to an EVA toolhead on my Ender 5. How do I calculate how much print area you gained or lost? So that's a good question, and that's a good thing too to bring up, because a lot of times when you change your hot end setup, and the multi-mount does this on some machines because the nozzle location is actually changed from the original hot end. What I usually do is I will home the printer to its home locations, and then I'll move it like 20 millimeters short of what the max distance is, and then I'll move it over in 1 millimeter increments and see and watch the nozzle and keep moving it over as long as I still have room, meaning I'm not going to hit anything on the frame, and make sure I can actually move the full distance. Now, once I figure out that, okay, like let's say a common thing is like, on a lot of these hot end mounts, they put your hot end further forward, like further towards the front of the printer than the stock one. And a good way to see what that is, again, it's usually on your Y direction, is home the printer and move it about 20 millimeters short of what your normal maximum is on Y, and look where the nozzle is. If the nozzle's already off the bed, then you're going to want to move it in the negative direction, and whatever millimeters you can no longer address, that's what you're going to subtract from your that's what you're going to subtract from your setting. Now, our firmware, we do provide the source code, so you can modify it, and it is, I don't know if like we should code in an option. It would be a medium amount of work for me to do, but also for like people doing on an individual basis, it wouldn't be that hard to modify your build volume, and I'll show you guys that right now just using the 422 config. So basically, like, let's say you have an Ender 3, okay? Let's say you have an Ender 3, you got the 422 board, you're setting everything up. The easiest way in our firmware is to jump to your section of code is to just copy your printer name, okay? Or your printer line. So in this case, Ender 3 422 board. And then I'm going to do a Control F, and I'm going to hit Find Next. And then you're going to jump down. And I do leave notes here in our firmware, if you guys notice. See, it says right here, Ender 3, 3 Max, 5, 5 Plus board settings. And we're going to scroll down here and we're going to look for the X bed size. And right here, you'll see if enabled Ender 3, here's our X bed size. So these are all the Ender extender options. And then basically, if none of these are enabled, these are our settings. So let's say you lost 15 millimeters on your Y, you would change this 235 to 220. So that hopefully that makes sense. And you could do this for your X, your Y, your Z. So if you had a mod that made it so you lost 10 millimeters of Z height, you could limit it right here and change it from 250 to 240. And same thing for your X bed size. And so if you just look for these values, the X bed size, Y bed size, and Z max pos, and just search for that, you can look and see where that's set. And this is all located in our configuration H file. This is in the section that it says, I think I have here, it says do not touch or something like this. Yeah, here, core machine settings are below. Do not modify these unless you understand what you are doing. So, because like I could code a thing in that like checks to see if you've defined something up in the config file to manually specify your X and Y bed size, but I have to do this for all the configs, which is probably like 30 or 40 different locations. So I could do it, but it's a non-zero amount of work, but the nice thing is you get the source code. This is one of the reasons why you should really want to have source code, is when you start modifying your printer, you're going to need to do little tweaks like this. And then after this, you're also going to want to update your slicer to reflect those new settings. So if you have to shorten your Y up by 15 millimeters in your firmware, remember to go back in your slicer and change that in your profile. So your profile build area matches your printer's physical build area. And then once you do that, go ahead and flash the firmware and then do a testing and make sure if you send it to the min and the max, you're not hitting anything on the frame. If you are, figure out where you need to take off build area in the firmware and, until you get it to where it doesn't collide with the frame and it can freely move in all directions. So, all right. So, Sai says, my Ender 3 Pro doesn't make the clicking noise when it hits the limit switches while it's homing. Should I be worried? If yes, then should I consider replacing the limit switches? So some of them are quiet, some of them are loud. I'm not actually really paid any mind to that, but I do know some are louder than others. Basically, if they're stopping the movement and they're registering triggered or open, you're fine. Now I have a billion Creality end stop board, end stop switch boards, because you get one when you replace your Z end stop with our Easy ABL kit. So I have a drawer full of them. But that is also a part in general, no matter what printer you have those on hand, because if an end stop switch goes out, it's going to be a bad time. So, yeah, Tom's asking, just looking at the TH restore and didn't say the Easy ABL micro, did I miss something? It's a drop down. And the product pages we're slowly working through, like revising things, to make things easier to find, but it's a large undertaking. So if we go to the main Easy ABL kit here, you can see here that there's different sensor sizes. And this one will be going away. The mini will be going away. But the micro and the pro are here. And I think we have to go and update some of these, because I think we have, yeah, you can also drop it down here. I was like, maybe we filtered them. So you select your sensor size on each product page. If you notice here on the Ender 3 V2 page, we have a note here, most users go with our 18 millimeter version. For that particular printer. But no matter if you order from here or a dedicated printer page, you're getting basically the same thing. We just have the dedicated printer pages to make it easier, in case you have like a printer like, the Ender 5 Plus, where it's going to need an extra Z cable. You can see here, like, we tack on little things, but these are also available to be added on the main Easy ABL page. So, but yeah, there's multiple different ones. So basically, when I update the site to get rid of the 12, I got to go here and change all the product photos. I got to make a new thumbnail here that doesn't show the 12, which I have all these, so I just got to go do it. It's just been lower on the priority list, so they're just going to be perpetually out of stock until I decide to get rid of them. So, all right. Michael Britton, would you be interested in giving a master class over supporting a large number of printers within Marlin? After starting into Marlin coding, I'm finding myself needing to improve my flow. Not particularly. There's a lot of stuff I'd like to do and be fun to do, but the reality is running a business takes up a lot of my time. And luckily we have been, and I want to say thank you too. So if you, those of you guys that are supporting our work with the firmware by making the purchase on our website, I do really appreciate it. And if you guys notice, I've been actually rapid firing a lot of little like bug fixes and even adding new features even for the SKR boards because people have been working with us. And what I've noticed is that aside from one guy who is a complete idiot and conducted himself just absolutely terribly, like a child, all caps, yelling and screaming. But anyways, everybody's been really great, and it's funny that the people, even just charging $5, the quality of the people we're getting, you know, in terms of like, hey, I think I found a bug, has been way better than when we had the firmware out for free. So it's like just that little $5, you know, donation for the firmware is getting us better quality people to work with, and I'm really appreciative of that. So yeah, but I would love to do stuff like teaching or, you know, classes and recording, but the reality is, you know, most of my day is consumed by putting out whatever fires come up. Like yesterday, Microsoft apparently changed something with their OAuth system, and our email, our help desk system stopped processing emails for about an hour, so we had to, I had to, you know, stop everything what I was doing and fix that. But yeah, like, it's very time consuming. So, and then what other time I have goes towards product development, or in this case now I've been dedicating more time to firmware development. So no, our if we're not giving refunds if there's a bug, but I will fix them if it's a legitimate bug. So we did have a couple of people where their bug was them not following directions. But there was one where I had done a bunch of work on my local computer here, like my physical computer. The code was sitting on here. I usually use WinMerge to compare my GitHub folder to my working folder and merge that over, and I forgot to copy a block of code in. So if you had enabled like, it was the Big Tree Tech touchscreen options, because you need to have additional what's the word I'm looking for? Oh, you have to have additional settings in the firmware, and luckily they actually have this documented for their touchscreen to like work with all the buttons on the screen. I coded an option that you uncomment that for like on the Easy Board V1 and V2 and on the SKR boards, you uncomment that and it turns on a bunch of different options. The reason we don't have those options on by default is to save on space. So I added that. That's a new feature. Now there was a bug where one of the things was G26 needs additional configuration options, and I didn't copy those over. I copied over the one line to enable it. So when you would, if you had auto bed leveling on Easy Board or an SKR board, and you also had the touchscreen option enabled, it wouldn't compile because there were variables that were missing. So I fixed that, and from the time I replied to the ticket, I had it patched, tested, and fixed in about 15 minutes. And the guy was very happy. But he gave me, you know, he's like, I'm having this error. Here's my config file. I looked at it. Originally, I wasn't able to replicate it because I was working off of my working folder, and then I took a fresh copy from our GitHub, which is where the packages you download from us come from. And then I was able to replicate the error, and then I compared the two files, like, ah, crap, I forgot to copy this block of code over, but it was fixed. So, anyways, dear, how do you handle ADHD and people interrupting you constant? I'm just usually the one that interrupts people. I wish I was joking. I'm working on it. But yeah. But usually if people interrupt me, I'll usually say, like, if it's something that's actually important, I know I'm going to lose my train of thought. I've like jotted stuff down. Like if I have a pen and paper, I've jotted stuff down, or I'm like, hey, I really need to get this out, or I'm going to forget it. And then if I forget it, I usually just end up being like, screw it, and I just walk away because now I'm frustrated. Yeah. So it goes both ways. I get frustrated when people interrupt me. I interrupt people probably at least once a day. It's not intentional. It's just, it's hard to put into words. It's basically like I only have so much working memory, and it either comes out or I forget it, and I only have so much time before it dissolves in the working memory before it's gone potentially forever. So unless something then comes along and jogs the memory again. And I think we'll do this on the last question here, since we are coming up. We'll give Remo his little treat. what's it called? So unified firmware, will it support input shaping that's an added upstream Marlin? So I'm going to play with that. I don't think that's going to be something that we will cover under our included tech support, but I want to have it as an option. I'm going to tell you right now, it's probably not going to run on 8-bit boards, and it might not run on some of the lower quality 32-bit boards, like the Creality boards with the 256K processors, the SKR boards with the 256K processors. But it's definitely going to be able to run on our EasyBoard V2, which has a meg of memory. It'll probably be able to work on the 512K chips, so like the 427s that have the 512K, the Crealities that have the 512Ks, any of the Big Tree Techs that have 512Ks, or EasyBoard V1s. So I will be playing with it, and if I do get it working, I think it's something that actually works well, I'll probably do videos on it. So, because I was thinking about that too, and then even coming up with like, hey, here's a kit with all the wiring, with the accelerometer and everything, here's how to wire it up to different boards. So that already is in the front of my mind. And I have already started, if you guys look on our GitHub, if you look, there's a 2.1.x-testing branch already. I've already started migrating our code base and updating it to the new 2.1.1 base. So I am working on it. It's a lot. There's a lot of difference. So we're on 2.0.9.3. So there's a lot of updates that happen between that release and the one we're on now. Or between that release, 2.0.9.3, and the one we're moving to. Elmas is saying, one more question. I only see the 18mm and 12. Do I use a 12 setting for the EasyABL Micro? If you're putting it in the 12 mount, use the 12 setting. If you're putting in the 18, use the 18 setting. So I believe our adapter rings, I can fire up Fusion. I think it's actually, I don't need to fire up Fusion. It's on our GitHub in the STL pack. I think the adapter rings we have are 8mm to 18mm, and those are the ones we include with the kits. And the reason we do that is most ABL mounts are only 18mm, that traditionally. So 12mm kind of been like an in-between size. STL files, ABL micro adapter ring. Yeah, so the micro adapter ring is to put the 8mm sensor in the 18mm mount. I don't know if Tor is watching, but I'll put one so at least you guys can self-print them, because they're a tiny little piece. I'll show you what I'm talking about here. So these are what are included with the EasyABL Micro. These are printed, and we do these in ABS here. This is just an adapter that snaps into an 18mm sensor hole and lets you put the 8mm in here. We had these for the Mini as well. So you can see this is the 12 to 18 adapter. And I'm sure we could just I could whip one up in Fusion really quick to put the 8 into a 12. So going forward, since the 12 is being discontinued, I'm going to try to do two different mounts, one for the 8 and one for the 18. But on larger printers, I'll just make sure that we can snap the 8mm in there and be done. So anyways, yeah, give me 1 second here. Yeah, so we are coming up on the 5 o'clock mark, and I'm going to go and have some food, and then I'm going to get to work on the Ender 7. So, but before that, I got to give Remo his dingo stick. Remo, do you want your dingo stick? I say dingo stick because that's what he knows for a treat. But I shooed the panda away because I want to wrap the stream up. But Remo still gets his dingo stick because he was a good boy. You were a good boy. Yeah. No, you do not get to take it out of my hand. Come here. Sit. No. Sit. Shake. Sit. Or can't talk. Shake. Sit. Touch. Good boy. There you go. Get a little chimkin jerky snack. But anyways, I appreciate you guys. I need to eat something. Probably why I'm getting hangry. So anyways, I will talk to you guys later. Thanks for stopping by. We do these streams every day. Dear God, no. We do these streams every week on Wednesdays at 4 p.m. Central Time. If you guys want to get notifications, because YouTube notifications typically suck, click the link in the video description for the YouTube notification emails, and you'll get an email 30 minutes before we go live for any of our streams. So anyways, I will talk to you guys later, and as always, happy printing. Say bye, Remo. Say bye. Say bye, buddy. What? Come here. Come on. You gotta say goodbye. Come here. Oh, yeah, we gotta say goodbye. Rah. Oh, your breath smells so bad.